And we are back at it again with Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron James. LeBron went on the Pat McAfee show just the other day to talk about everything, it seems like, with the world of basketball and sports media. And of course, the feud, if you will, with Stephen A. Smith came up again. So we're going to just lay it all out here again. What was your first thoughts when you saw Stephen A. Smith's reaction to it, and also with what LeBron James said?
I mean, Stephen A. Smith is really milking this for all it's worth. Obviously, as a personality in sports media, you'd want to, if LeBron James is ever going to talk about you, you kind of have to do that. But I definitely like maybe using this for more clicks for sure. Some of these are taken out of context, but I feel like everyone's seen the video where he's saying that he would have had to swing on LeBron if he put his hands on him. I think that is definitely a funny statement to make. I think he also covered that beforehand, just before that, like that clip ends up starting for the majority of what everyone's seen, by saying he'd probably get himself beat if he did do that. But I think that just this whole, like, he's pressing into like territories we haven't really seen before. He was like on First Take, he was covering like the fact that LeBron wasn't at like Kobe's like funeral or something like that, and it was just like a lot of like bases that like didn't really need to be covered. He easily could have just like taken what like LeBron gave him with what he was saying on Pat McAfee, and then but he's like going the extra mile, which I think is a little bit unnecessary. I think that some of the points that he's made about like Bronny and how he has to cover him because he's an NBA player and the reason why he got there through his dad are like halfway legitimate, but I think he's like Stephen A. Smith is definitely stretching this, and it's becoming a thing where the more he talks, I feel like the more people start to side with LeBron, at least for this specific issue.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are taking the angle that, hey, Stephen A. Smith is still gaining a lot from this, right? He has a lot of reason or motivation to continue this feud, if you will, with LeBron because it brings in viewers and it brings in people watching First Take in the morning. I got to be honest, I definitely think that this will get to a certain point of diminishing returns for him because if he's not already there, the credibility thing is starting to get to a new low where it's like, you got to be careful because this is becoming a little bit bigger than just sports media, lunch table talk, like in the morning, or just even general. We're way far away from like the journalism aspect, but it's pretty far away from that, a little bit too far than maybe you would like, because obviously we know sports talk is, it's almost like The View for dudes. Like it's definitely a different type of like sports media that's not just journalism. We're losing the plot in a sense. And I think Stephen A. Smith, if he were to continue down this road, is just going to have everything fall on deaf ears if it's not already doing that. Also, I feel like LeBron was in a very he was in a compromising position because he chose to also like engage when he usually doesn't engage, and then he went on the Pat McAfee show and kind of expressed it further. But I feel like throughout all of this, he's been extremely well spoken, and his point, whether or not you may agree with it or disagree, is very well laid out and respectable. But like Stephen A. Smith, I think is coming off as more so like not in a place of like genuineness. If you'll give me that word. I don't know if that's a word, but it's not seeming genuine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the more it drags on, it like increasingly seems to feel disingenuous. Maybe is a word that we can use there.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely it's getting to more of a point where it's like comedy at this point rather than like anything else. Which I mean, do you really want that as Stephen A. Smith? I mean, maybe like that's kind of, he leans into that a little bit. That's kind of his bit. Like he's like more like the guy that like screams and shouts sometimes, and then also adds a little bit of like flavor to his content. But this is like definitely straying away from it. And then he's like starting to bring up slightly more serious things, and like he's like, oh, I've never talked about this with LeBron and that with LeBron. I'm like, okay, like this isn't like like one, as a viewer, I don't really care all that much, and then two, it's just like you're dragging out for no reason, just bringing stuff that like you probably don't need to, and then again, like what you were saying with the credibility thing, I think it like diminishing returns, and it's just not doesn't, it starts to look worse and worse for him. So I think that maybe that the cap on his Stephen A. Smith show and then going back on First Take should probably be the end of that, unless, I mean, if LeBron gives another response, then I think he will and probably has to do another one, but this should probably be the end of this like little saga that we've been going on for like a week and a half now.
I remember when Shannon Sharp got kicked out of the game, right? It was the Grizzlies and the Lakers game. I remember when he got kicked out of that, I think everybody was like, whoa, like this is maybe just a little bit too much. Still, even though he's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, you still kind of want to stay away from actively feuding with people who are directly a part of this, even though that was like John Moran's dad or whatever. But you don't want to actively feud with some of these guys that you're talking about every single day. That's still not good business. Another thing I thought was pretty interesting was Brian Windhorst kind of catching a bit of a stray in that entire interview. I guess he had mentioned that LeBron signed with Nike because of his love for Jordan, or LeBron was also maybe potentially his best friend, or described it as their relationship being a little bit more than just, professional, where it was like, journalist and athlete. I thought that was really interesting because I kind of felt bad for Wendy, because I think at the end of the day, he probably isn't that delusional, and he's still really good at covering the NBA, but he kind of followed LeBron all the way to the top. But I still think he's made a pretty good career out of himself. He caught a bit of a stray. I didn't know what you had to think about that.
Yeah, I think Wendy handled that really well too. He like went on First Take the next day and then made like a top 5 prospects ever, like top 5 prospects with the most hype ever, and put LeBron James at number 1. There was like zero bias in like what he was talking about. He laid it out like really well, like laid out the fact that LeBron James was like the most hyped prospect ever, and just a really good list in general from Wendy in that. And then I think that he laid that out probably the way he should have. He didn't really take offense to it, and probably understands like again that his relationship with like maybe that like people, and maybe not him specifically, but just in general, his relationship with LeBron might have been a little bit overstated, and he didn't really take any offense to it. So I appreciate the way Windhorst like handled that situation, because he went on the next day and then acted like nothing happened. I think somebody right after that, right after he was done talking, he said like that was like a professional list or something like that. Like somebody like chimed in and made like a joke about like LeBron like harping in on it. But I just think that it was funny. Like it just definitely a stray that like maybe didn't need to be sent from LeBron. But I mean, if you're gonna be go on attack mode, do whatever you want, I guess.
And LeBron is a player that deals with so much criticism from all angles. I think it's nice, even though Brian Windhorst did, probably get a little bit too much flack for whatever. Like, I don't know if he's ever said that he was best friends with LeBron or whatever, but who cares? It's not really that big of a deal, is at least professional about it. Because LeBron, he gets criticism from every single angle. And he even got a little bit on, the podcasts and the shows that he chooses to participate with, or to participate for, and stuff like that. So I just thought it was crazy, a wild kind of development in sports media. So hopefully we don't end up talking about it too much more, but it's always kind of a fun topic to cover, I think.